IAMA, we are Seattle journalists who made a documentary about a man's choice to end his life using Washington's Death with Dignity law. Ask us anything. We are reporter John Sharify and photojournalist Joseph Huerta with King 5 News in Seattle and Stephanie Murray, a volunteer with the organization End of Life Washington. Bob Fuller, who was diagnosed with terminal cancer at 75, invited us to share his story as he prepared to end his life using Washington's Death with Dignity law. We made the documentary, Bob's Choice, which chronicles the last 3 months of his life. AMA, watch Bob's Choice, more about Washington's Death with Dignity law.
Sandman_42, hi, and thanks for doing this AMA. 2 questions for you. 1. What is the approximate cost of the process for a patient who takes this action? I am guessing this is not covered by insurance. 2. Is there any data on the utilization rates of this program yet? By that I mean, do we know how common participation among terminal patients in the state is? Is this a difficult service to access due to physicians being reluctant or organizations being unwilling to let their doctors participate?
King 5 Seattle 1. Technically, there are 2 protocols we use. Seconal, which is incredibly difficult to get and costs about $3,000. The protocol Bob used was the compounded mixture, which costs about $800. Some insurance covers it, and we encourage clients' families to submit the expense to their insurance company in case it's covered. Also possibly, if enough insurance companies are requested to cover it, their policies might change, too. I think it is more a matter of lack of knowledge about the law. I believe utilization rates are less than 5% if I recall correctly. If we had more people asking their physicians, I think more would be supportive. Stephanie.
Sure, what would you most like to tell us that no one asks about?
King 5 Seattle, people want to know about the last day and we've received a lot of questions about that. But it's the first day that sticks in my mind. How positive he was. How funny. How full of life and how resolved he was with his plan. That first day with Bob opened my eyes. From day one he had this ability to make us feel comfortable with his decision. John.
CityCat 991, I haven't seen the documentary, but I am curious about it. What was the hardest part of filming?
King 5 Seattle, the day Bob died was very tough mentally and emotionally. When Bob went into his bedroom to change into his pajamas, I waited outside of his room with his loved ones and cried. I kept thinking to myself, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I knew this is what Bob wanted. Bob specifically reached out to John and I to share his story. That gave me the strength to continue with the shoot. Joseph
Rich Coronoyer, what method did Bob choose to die? And do you believe it was painless?
King 5 Seattle, Bob took a 4-medication compounded mixture which we mixed with Kahlua and he took it using his feeding tube. He felt nothing, other than sleepiness. Stephanie.
Yamalamaberry Obama, is there criteria for what conditions are deemed as suffering when it comes to choosing to finish life? Is counseling required for patients considering assisted suicide? If so, for how long? Can people choose to die in their homes or another setting, or does this only happen in a hospital? So many people want more information about this, but the taboo seems to interfere with even the statistics. How can we reduce the stigma surrounding choosing when we die?
King 5 Seattle, the requirements are 1. WA resident 2. Of sound mind 3. Terminal diagnosis with less than 6 months to live 4. Being able to self-ingest. Counseling isn't actually required. Folks can take their meds in their home, just not in a public place. Stephanie.
Bokanonid goes, when dealing with the general public, do you find most people support this or are they opposed?
King 5 Seattle, almost all of the people in Bob's circle were very supportive of his decision. Bob knew he would have his critics and he would say, it's not for everybody. But this was my choice.
Bokanonid goes, when dealing with the general public, do you find most people support this or are they opposed?
King 5 Seattle, for the general public we see about 80 to 85% support.
Cheese my savior, does age matter? Could a 20-year-old who was given less than 6 months to live apply? Side note, I wish this existed in Poland when my grandfather was diagnosed with cancer. He was a big strong WW2 veteran and the illness stripped away all his dignity before he passed away. Sad face.
King 5 Seattle, in WA the requirements are 1, WA resident 2, of sound mind 3, terminal diagnosis with less than 6 months to live 4, being able to self-ingest. 8 20-year-old is an adult so would be eligible. Stephanie.
Thinkenwrinkle, did you get any blowback from Bob's loved ones? Did they handle his decision well? Thank you so much for the work you do.
King 5 Seattle, thank you. To the question of blowback. Not at all. Bob's loved ones, and I include friends, ultimately were very supportive and didn't want to see him suffer. John.
Najing_FTW, of all of the reasons argued against assisted suicide, which one do you feel is the most valid? For the record, I am fully supportive of people's right to die with dignity.
King 5 Seattle, we call it aid in dying or death with dignity. The death certificate shows she died of their underlying illness. Regarding the reason against it, I would say, if your values say it's a sin, Stephanie.
Wookieestikashui, how does this work in regards to life insurance? Does this keep his family from receiving any money from insurance to pay for his funeral, burial, etc.?
King 5 Seattle, the death certificate shows the person died of the underlying illness so her death is no different from any other death from that perspective. Stephanie.
Almond Parfit, what did you find is most misunderstood about this law issue?
King 5 Seattle, I think a lot of people don't even know it's an option in Washington state. It's one of the reasons Bob wanted to share his story. He wanted people to know death with dignity was an option. And his choice. John.
Zero Cole, the WA.gov link says they can request medication. Reddit's favorite painless death method is nitrogen hypoxia. Would that be allowed or does it have to be pharmaceutical?
King 5 Seattle, in Washington state, we have 2 prescription protocols and I think most doctors would prescribe the pharmaceutical. Stephanie.
RBA2DC, are medical professionals required to present dying with dignity as an option to a terminally ill patient? I would guess the answer is no. If so, do we have any idea of what percentage of terminally ill patients are informed of this choice? And what percentage of those elect it?
King 5 Seattle, he chose May because he didn't think he'd make it through the summer. He was in a ton of pain and his airways could well have started restricting. Stephanie.
RBA2DC, are medical professionals required to present dying with dignity as an option to a terminally ill patient? I would guess the answer is no. If so, do we have any idea of what percentage of terminally ill patients are informed of this choice? And what percentage of those elect it?
King 5 Seattle, and GT, are medical professionals required to present dying with dignity as an option to a terminally ill patient? And GT, I would guess the answer is no. If so, do we have any idea of what percentage of terminally ill patients are informed of this choice? And what percentage of those elect it? Medical professionals, or hospice, are not required to educate their patients about this option. Would love to see that change. Stephanie.
Woolybugger 00, I worked a 25-year career in organ donation, particularly in organ procurement, and was involved in putting Oregon's Death with Dignities Act together. I was wondering if you had the same experience with pharmacists refusing to fill scripts for this protocol? How about any pushback from the Catholic health groups?
King 5 Seattle, yes, there is pushback there. And even if the policy of the pharmacy is to support, the pharmacist herself can choose not to fill the script. Stephanie.
Neener 691, my family has a history of dementia, all die around 71, I am currently taking care of my uncle who has it, it's a difficult disease, he believes in being able to die with dignity, but didn't set it up before the dementia took over. I would like to set something up for myself. If I get this disease I do not want my family to have to suffer with me, is there a way to set this up in a end-of-life plan?
King 5 Seattle, and GT, Plygiv Award Share Report Save and GT, Level 1 Bafum 3T 871.6 minutes ago. There any plans to go overseas and see how death of dignity law is being used in different routes? Yes, you can create an advance directive to document your wishes and designate someone as your healthcare power of attorney, Stephanie.
I gave up. Did you learn anything about Bob that was particularly surprising?
King 5 Seattle, I was surprised he never wavered about his decision. I made a point of asking him each time I saw him if he was still sure. Each time, he was. Till the end, John.
Hoots 76, is there a resource to find other states that do this?
King 5 Seattle, yes, you can find more information about death with dignity laws here. Currently 8 states and the District of Columbia have death with dignity laws.
Ask about my dumb site. At any point during the filming did you not want Bob to go through with it?
King 5 Seattle, throughout the filming we kept asking the question, are you still good with this? He never wavered and wanted us to know he wanted to take control of his end of life. Our commitment was to be there with him till the end, but we knew that at any moment he could change his mind. That was another question I kept asking, have you considered changing your mind? Never, was his response. Of course we were prepared for a change of heart, prepared to tell that story. John.